All participants in the waste disposal process strive to achieve one common goal: to support the Hanford cleanup mission by safely transporting and disposing of waste material at the Environmental Restoration Disposal Facility. To accomplish this goal on a daily basis, each worker must perform his or her job in a cooperative and collaborative manner. Teamwork is absolutely critical. Each worker must understand that his or her actions affect all others along the disposal chain. One minor mistake can lead to a fellow worker's injury or a major setback in the entire process. Nowhere is teamwork more crucial than in the handling of ERDF roll-on, roll-off waste containers, which are used to transport vast quantities of waste to ERDF for disposal. ERDF receives a wide variety of waste types, including radioactively contaminated soil and building debris, as well as hazardous materials such as asbestos and beryllium. Other wastes, such as chromium-contaminated soil, lead, and mercury, are treated at the facility before disposal. Waste disposal is performed by 3 teams. The waste disposal process begins with the waste generation team, where the container is filled, then hauled to ERDF by the transportation team, and then finally dumped by the disposal team.
Hi, I'm Jeff Armitrout, the Director for Waste Operations. We've put together a short film to demonstrate the important role you play in the preparation for an ERDF roll-on, roll-off container. Did you know that every container requires 12 people to do the preparation, the transportation, and the disposal? Each of you play a very important role in protecting one of those people. This film is intended to introduce you to the people that depend on you and doing your job, and to demonstrate why your job is important to them.
The waste generation site is also where the waste is identified, sampled, and characterized. Before the container is prepared to receive waste at the generation site, workers inspect the container in the queue. They remove the tarp, perform a 10% contamination survey, and install the plastic liner. The liner is used to facilitate dumping and minimize the spread of contamination within the container. In some cases, the liner is required as part of the packaging. During winter periods, glycol is sprayed to the interior of the container to prevent the liner from freezing to the container, and it helps the load to slide out of the container during disposal. The container is then moved to the waste site and loaded. Its contents are identified on the pre-shipment checklist. The container is sent to a location to be surveyed, weighed, liner closed, and tarp installed. Proper installation of the tarp bungee is essential to prevent injury to those removing the bungees. Double-wrap bungees cause injuries. If a bungee will not close the tarp, it is repaired before shipment. The container is placed in a queue for final shipment preparation. The shipper uses information provided from the characterization data, RANDCON surveys, and direct observation by generator personnel via a pre-shipment checklist to complete an on-site waste tracking form, or OWTF. At this point, the shipper signs and places the OWTF on the container. The OWTF is used for Department of Transportation documentation, project controls cost accounting documentation, recording ERDF cell volume and contents, and as a means to identify to ERDF personnel the container's contents and hazards. A basic description of the waste and the specific hazards involved with the container is provided on the OWTF. For example, treatment required, special handling, asbestos, and long or large items of concrete or steel. This information is reviewed by the disposal team to alert them of any hazards or special handling requirements during the dumping process. Incorrect or missing information has resulted in significant impacts to disposal operations. When the shipper authorizes the container for transport, the completed OWTF and any associated documentation is placed in a shipping pouch and attached to the front of the container. This signifies the container is ready for transport. The process of loading, prepping, and documenting the container is essential for safe and compliant transportation and disposal. Transportation is responsible for the safe transport of full and empty containers between the waste generation site and ERDF. After arriving at the generation site, the driver selects a container with a shipping pouch attached to the front. Before loading, the driver inspects the container and checks the OWTF. He then performs a 360-degree inspection of the container for any signs of damage. This includes checking the shell, rollers, tow hook, tailgate, and undercarriage. If there is evidence of structural damage or potential breaches in the container, the driver stops work and notifies supervision. After the driver reviews the OWTF for completion and verifies that the container is ready for transport, the shipping date is entered on the OWTF. The shipping pouch is then secured in the driver's side door pocket. The driver then loads and secures the container onto the truck. For yellow manifest shipments, the container is surveyed after loading to verify radiological conditions are compliant with the DOT requirements. Upon entering ERDF, the driver moves directly to one of 3 scales. There, the information on the OWTF is entered into the Waste Management Information System. The driver then transports the container to the CTA. Within the CTA, containers are staged in designated storage locations by waste type. These locations include general population, debris, steel, 50-50 mix of soil and debris, wastes that are required to be stored in a posted radiation area, treatment required waste, special handling waste, and beryllium contaminated waste. Placing containers in the correct area is one of the administrative controls to prevent improper disposal. This is the most important role the driver can play in preventing improper disposal activities. In the past, the improper disposal of a single container has resulted in shutting down disposal operations and resulted in corrective actions, which included removal of approximately 100 containers of waste.
It's important to fill out the OWTF correctly because we got to make sure the drivers that are bringing the containers in have to put them in the correct area. And if they're labeled correctly and everything's on there that's supposed to be, it makes it easy for us because our people are trained to pick up in certain areas. So if they pick up something and it ends up being a debris can and they're trying to grab soils, they have to end up, they end up putting it back down and then having to, re-hook up and go to another can or move that can to the correct area, which takes away from our production. And it just one more clause that makes it to where something bad can happen instead of just, picking up like normal and just heading up to the ramp.
The second administrative control is a review of the OWTF and completion of Block 5 by the CTA lead. Once this is verified, the tarp is prepared for dumping. Next, the shuttle truck driver picks up the container in the CTA, proceeds to a disposal area, and backs the truck onto the dump ramp. Dump ramp personnel inspect the container to ensure that the container's safety latches are engaged and that the sides and ends of the container are not compromised. If at any time during the inspection or dumping process the container is found to be damaged, work is stopped and supervision is notified. The final administrative control is performed when the lead laborer reviews the OWTF for completeness and special handling or hazards associated with dumping the container. Examples could include larger bulky items. This is the last opportunity to prevent improper disposal actions or to prevent disposal of treatment required waste prior to treatment.
It's important to have the OWTF properly labeled. When it comes to the ramp, it's nice to know what's in it. If it's marked soil and out pops metal, large objects, we're not expecting it. It could be a shallow ramp, or we're pushing the top of waste, or there could potentially be some special handled waste in there, fencing or something that requires different handling procedures. So it's just nice to know what's in it. When you're a ramp worker, there's big metal, could be a potential danger for the guys on the ramp, and there might not be anywhere to push it when you're pushing the top of waste for the dozer operator.
The dump ramp is a choreographed operation consisting of 2 laborers, 1 radiological control technician, an equipment operator, and truck drivers. Communication between the workers is critical for a safe operation. During dumping operations, the waste is inspected for non-compliant items. This is why it is crucial to provide a complete description of the contents on the OWTF. Examples of items which have caused delays in the past include unopened containers, gas bottles, lab vials, and unusual smells. Before the container is released from the dump ramp, the container is verified empty, radiological surveys of the tailgate performed, the gasket is inspected, the door is closed, latched, and torqued, and the final inspection of the container's integrity is performed. The container is then transported back to the CTA. CTA personnel will reattach the tarp and perform RADCON surveys before releasing the container for transport. Proper installation of the tarp bungee is essential to prevent injury to those removing the bungees. Double wrap bungees cause injuries. If the bungee will not close the tarp, it is repaired before shipment. Finally, the shipping pouch is moved to the front of the container, signifying that it is ready for transport. The cycle resumes in the CTA with the transportation driver picking up an empty container for transport to a waste generation site. As always, the transportation driver performs a 360-degree inspection before picking up the empty container. Following precipitation events, water, snow, and ice are cleared from container tarps. An inspection of the interior of the container is also performed. Waste containers found to contain precipitation are emptied. They should not be released for service until appropriate measures are taken.
I hope you now know why your job is important and who is counting on you. We are one team for the safe, visible cleanup of the river corridor. Let's protect each other. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.